Welcome to The Explainer. Right at this very second, somewhere out in the world, a doctor is saving a life. There's a machine breathing for someone who literally can't take a breath on their own. And there's a tiny little pill fighting off an infection that, honestly, just 100 years ago would have been an absolute death sentence. We live in a world where these incredible modern miracles feel, well, completely ordinary. But try to imagine a time not so long ago when people had absolutely no idea what caused disease. A time when a simple paper cut could actually kill you. So it all boils down to this. Why do we get sick and how can we heal? This quiet but incredibly powerful question has driven human curiosity, courage, and survival for our entire history. It's a messy story full of failure, accidental discovery, and pure resilience. And the best part is, it's a story that belongs to every single one of us. Okay, let's dive into this. We're looking at a massive chronological relay race spanning countless civilizations. We'll journey from the dawn of healing and the roots of science, see who preserved the medical flame during the Dark Ages, explore the anatomy revolution and the invisible world, before finally arriving at modern miracles. Part 1, the dawn of healing. Before written records, we are going way, way back to a time long before cities, books, or schools even existed. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this timeline, think about the number 60,000. Archaeologists have actually found medicinal plants buried right alongside human bones that are over 60,000 years old. This proves that early healers, often called shamans, were already passing down spoken knowledge about exactly which roots calmed pain and which leaves cleaned wounds. They were just trying to find this delicate harmony and balance between the physical body and the wild world around them. Now, things evolved dramatically when writing entered the picture. Around 1550 BC, ancient Egypt produced the Ebers Papyrus. It lists over 700 medical remedies, treating everything from a minor headache to literally crocodile bites. No joke. They used garlic, aloe, and, importantly, willow bark, which actually contains the natural chemical base for modern aspirin. But you have to remember, these Egyptian doctor-priests existed in this fascinating space right between science and magic. They'd mix these incredibly effective herbal remedies with spoken prayers. Part 2. The ancient roots of science. The shift in ancient Greece. And this brilliantly illustrates that shift. Around 400 BC, a guy named Hippocrates kicks off a massive paradigm shift on the Greek island of Kos. Basically, humanity starts moving away from blaming supernatural causes, magic, angry spirits, or divine punishment, and begins looking exclusively for natural causes. People finally started to ask not just what heals the body, but why we get sick in the first place, relying on careful observation and really honest record-keeping. Hippocrates left us with a revolutionary code of ethics, which is perfectly captured in his famous maxim, "First, do no harm." He essentially taught his students to observe, listen, and just let the body heal itself whenever possible. And centuries later, around 200 AD, another brilliant mind named Galen built heavily on this exact foundation, giving us some of humanity's absolute earliest detailed studies of human anatomy. Part 3. Preserving the medical flame, the Islamic Golden Age. So, after the fall of the Roman Empire, much of Europe enters a dark period. Those grand ancient Greek libraries are lost, and learning slows to an absolute crawl. Just look at the massive gaps in time here. From Hippocrates in 400 BC to Galen in 200 AD, and then a huge leap all the way to 980 AD. But the flame of learning wasn't extinguished completely. It was preserved elsewhere. And that leads to a brilliant intellectual adventure sparked by the birth of Ibn Sina in modern-day Uzbekistan. See, while Europe was struggling, the Islamic Golden Age was absolutely booming from the 8th to the 13th centuries. We're talking bustling centers of learning in cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba. Scholars were traveling enormous distances just to share ideas. They translated ancient texts and made massive, groundbreaking advances in surgery, pharmacy, and even the anatomy of the eye. At the very heart of all this was Ibn Sina, who authored a truly monumental book called The Canon of Medicine. 500, think about that for a second. That is how many years Ibn Sina's The Canon of Medicine actively guided European university medical practice. It was so remarkably comprehensive, organizing literally all known medical knowledge into one clear, logical system, that it was translated into Latin and used for half a millennium. 500 years of the world relying on the absolute genius of one man's lifetime of work. Part 4. The Anatomy Revolution. Welcome to the European Renaissance. Moving into the 1400s and 1500s, This is an era of total rebirth. Curiosity is finally driving people to experiment instead of just blindly reading dusty old texts. See, for centuries, there was a strict, unbreakable taboo against dissecting human bodies. That meant everyone was relying on ancient texts and just repeating Galen's centuries-old errors without questioning them. But a Flemish doctor named Andreas Vesalius came along and completely broke that taboo. He championed direct observation and testing over forbidden, unquestioned ancient doctrine. So, the crucial point is what happens in 1543. Vesalius publishes On the Fabric of the Human Body, which is packed with these beautiful, incredibly detailed, layer-by-layer illustrations of true, observed human anatomy. The realization here was profound. Medicine could no longer rely on blind authority. Doctors had to look, measure, test, and be completely honest about what they actually found. Part 5. The Invisible World. The enormous breakthrough of the 19th century. So, for most of human history, people wrongly blamed disease on bad air or weird fluid imbalances or even curses. And why? Because the real enemy was literally invisible. Everything changed with the microscope. It allowed scientists like Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch in the 1860s and 70s to uncover this teeming hidden world right under our noses. They established germ theory, the scientific principle that specific microscopic organisms like bacteria and viruses enter the body, multiply, and cause specific diseases. The domino effect of this was just astounding. Once germ theory was firmly established, a doctor named Joseph Lister had a light bulb moment. He realized he needed to apply antiseptics to his surgical tools and actually wash his hands to kill those germs. The result? Surgical death rates from infection dropped off a cliff. Before this, going under the knife was incredibly dangerous, not just because of the cutting itself, but because infection was basically inevitable. This single realization changed everything, from hospital design to food storage, making medicine infinitely safer. Part 6. Modern Miracles and Beyond. The final few minutes of our story. Let's move to the present and see how this all builds. If you took the entire history of medicine, from those early shamans all the way to today, and squished it into a single day, almost everything that defines modern medicine happened in the last few minutes. In 1928, Alexander Fleming returns from a short holiday to find a contaminated mold killing bacteria in a petri dish. That happy accident gave us penicillin, the very first antibiotic, which went on to save millions during World War II. And today, every single decade brings a new miracle. We're eradicating diseases like smallpox, doing MRI scans, analyzing unique DNA to tailor individual treatments, and performing complex operations through tiny cuts, guided by cameras smaller than your fingertip. But, of course, the journey is absolutely not over. There are so many unwritten chapters ahead of us. We still face diseases we don't fully understand, superbug infections that are resisting our absolute best antibiotics. And let's not forget the enormous global inequality when it comes to healthcare access. But all over the world, young scientists are sitting at microscopes right now, still hunting for answers. Because learning, whether in medicine or anything else, is fundamentally an act of hope. It's a refusal to give up. Which brings us right back to where we started. Why do we get sick and how can we heal? Our tools today are infinitely more precise and our understanding is so much deeper. But the core spirit of care, it remains exactly the same as those earliest shamans who placed healing herbs beside the sick 60,000 years ago. It is a deeply human belief that suffering can be reduced if we just keep learning. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. As we stand on the shoulders of 60,000 years of discovery, what impossible medical miracle will human curiosity unlock tomorrow? Thank you so much for exploring this journey with me on The Explainer. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and think about which part of this incredible medical history surprised you the most.